That's a really big question because this is something for me, the balance of those two is in my opinion, the ideal for a great athlete.
Hello, friends. Thank you for tuning into this week's episode of the Mayn Idea Podcast, where today I have the pleasure of sitting down with Victor Estima. A quick reminder for those that enjoy this podcast, please take 30 seconds and leave a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify and subscribe to the YouTube channel. This helps the show get discovered organically and helps me continue to bring on amazing guests. Also, there are now timestamps in the show notes on Spotify and on YouTube, so you can skip around to the part that interests you most, although I always recommend listening to the episode in its entirety. Victor Estima is a 4th degree Carlson Gracie Jr. black belt, decorated Jiu Jitsu competitor, and creator of the vicious footlock submission, the Estima Lock. Victor is now based out of Lisbon, Portugal, under the Gracie Barra name, and can be found online, social media, and YouTube, demonstrating high-level techniques that you can implement in your own game. I hope that you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. Without further ado, Victor Estima. Well, Victor, from the other side of the world, I want to welcome you to the show. I'm glad that we were able to navigate the trip to Spain and everything, and actually get you on here. I've been really looking forward to having you, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate the invitation. Yes, when we were really busy, sometimes things get on the way, and I'm glad that we made it work. It was not too long.
I always like to, I have so much respect for people that have been not only involved in martial arts, but really dedicated their life to it on many different levels, right? You have an extensive competitive background. You've competed at the world-class level. But from my understanding and reading about you and listening to interviews that you've done, you really embody jiu-jitsu too, and are a spokesperson for the sport, for the art form, for how much it can impact people's life. And I always like to ask people in this situation, what does jiu-jitsu mean to you?
Right, jiu-jitsu for me is it's a lot more than just a martial art that I practice. Jiu-jitsu for me is it can be cheesy and sound obvious, but it's a way of life. I think that since the day I made the decision that jiu-jitsu is going to be the journey I will pursue and I will make this my life, I try to live every day very aware of what it means to me, why I made a decision. And jiu-jitsu for me, it's about to be the best I can be. This is what I've learned through my time training before I even made the decision. Jiu-jitsu is about a commitment to help others on a process of my own development. Jiu-jitsu for sure, it's a platform that I have to impact the world in a positive manner. I think this is really completes what really jiu-jitsu defines for me.
And is that so? You grew up in Brazil. You're exposed to jiu-jitsu at a very young age. How much of this is an understanding of jiu-jitsu that you develop as you become an adult, as you are exposed to more people in the art form? And then how much of that do you think was baked into your childhood? Like, how much of that was just already part of your life and your upbringing? Or how did it develop as you got older, as you were exposed to more?
That's an interesting one. I never really got to know much about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in my childhood because Jiu-Jitsu was in its infancy. Especially I come from Recife in northeast of Brazil, which is an area quite far away from the main hub for Jiu-Jitsu at that time, which was Rio de Janeiro. It would take me about 2 hours and 40 minutes, 3 hours flight to get to the hub of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in Brazil. So I only began training Jiu-Jitsu at the age of 19. I already did some Judo before. And that was how I got more interested in the grappling sort of art. And jiu-jitsu became a place, the jiu-jitsu school that I found was the place I kind of connected with, and then started to get me to get interested, to begin that journey. And that journey was first started by trying to build some confidence. It started by trying to get some sort of a nurture, like not nurture, but like funnel that energy that I had as a person. Jiu-jitsu started to fill that void, that I had, that willingness to try to express myself. And jiu-jitsu started to become part of my routine. But at that stage, jiu-jitsu was just a sport that I did after school. Right. I never really understood the depth of jiu-jitsu because I was just a young boy. I just felt the thrill of being challenged and trying to go to tournaments and trying to come back with a medal. And that was my initial journey. But only later, when jiu-jitsu was growing with me as I matured. And I think there was a mutual development. Jiu-jitsu changing who I am, making building who I am, helping, giving me the tools to enter life. Because if you can think of jiu-jitsu as a microcosmos of many different learning experiences, that if you can look at the depth of learning jiu-jitsu, you can replicate in anything in your life. But I didn't know that would be so replicable because I was just beginning that journey. I was developing on that, my first experience of maybe excellence. Now we can talk about looking for excellence in a particular thing. I never felt like I excelled in anything in my life until jiu-jitsu started to show that give me the interest to pursue further. So that's how I felt, later.
In those earlier moments of your life, so when you said you got into jiu-jitsu around 19, right? So that's
15.
15.
I was 15,
so
yeah.
You're a teenager, you're starting to go through those evolutions that we all go through, right, at young adulthood, and the world is a pretty crazy place. You had talked about jiu-jitsu filling this kind of like this fulfillment of confidence, and it helped develop that area of who you were. Did you feel like that was lacking before you found jiu-jitsu, and then finding jiu-jitsu was really like this thing that came into your life and brought that all together? Or what, I guess my bigger question here is, who is Victor prior to discovering jiu-jitsu? What was the biggest shift that kind of happened to you through your mindset, maybe the way that you view the world, how you view other kids your age? Because I just know, and I got into it much, much later. It wasn't until I was 25, and I'm very much a novice in the whole journey as is. But even that moment was so pivotal for me. It was such a specific, when I look back into my life, it was a very specific moment in time where I was exposed to something that completely shifted everything that I thought. And it made me think a lot differently about the person that I thought I was before, and how I thought of myself, or my ego, and all of that was just shattered by this one experience of training. And obviously, now it's been 5+ years, and it's very much a part of my life. I love talking about it. So if you can maybe think back to those kind of your pre and post jiu-jitsu version of yourself, what were those initial moments like, those initial shifts that you felt?
100%. I really relate to this question because even though I was a young teenager, I felt like I had an unfinished business with myself. I felt like I could not stick to things, because to explain that, I need to go back a little before that. I began judo when I was 6 years old. By the time I was 7 to 8, my teacher passed on a motorbike accident back in Brazil. Then I lost my teacher, lost the heart, because it kind of was traumatic, and then I stayed away from the mats for a little while. Then I went to football, and I was a goalkeeper. I was playing to a good standard. I was playing like state championships at age of my, let's say 7, 8, 9. but I could not keep going with that because I was young. My parents worked really hard, and I couldn't not go to the places to practice. So football died down, and then eventually I gave it a shot in judo again when I was a bit older, and I was 11, and I could not keep going because something was always kind of unfinished. And as that critical time from 11 to 15, when you become more of a more developed teenager, you're really looking to enter your critical times as a young adult. I lost in things like confidence. For example, I would struggle to speak up for myself. I would struggle to, even give back a joke somebody made to me, and I felt very passive. I felt like others take advantage of my passiveness, and I felt like I was suffering bullying a little bit, and not necessarily physical bullying at that time. It was very mental bullying. It felt like I could not stand my ground in things, and I had to really think twice before I say things because I felt like people could twist it around on me, and I was growing up in that kind of mentality, and that connected with the physical element, because the reason why I could not speak up is because I was afraid of consequences. I was afraid of what happened if I speak up and they don't like it, and then a lot of things were happening at that time with me. And when I started training jiu-jitsu, I never knew that would be helping me somehow. I never understood how it would help me, but it did change how I felt about myself. I was finally nurturing everything that I had into that experience. I was feeling like I've been exposed to some level of heavy training that allowed me to believe in myself that I can endure hardship. And it was just after my first year training that I started to realize what I was actually training was something substantial, because I was able to face stronger opponents, and I could handle my own. And if somebody was stronger but never knew jiu-jitsu, I already could do it and dominate the situation. And that was an incredible feeling to know that even for bigger people than me, I could protect myself and stand my ground physically, allowing me then to feel like I can stand my ground verbally. And also it changed the way people view me at that time. They made fun of me because I was just a kid playing guitar and nothing else but that, to become somebody who is training martial arts, whose physique is changing, and I act more confident and I spoke more confident, and that allowed me to feel better about myself. And completely directed me to a completely new path, because that empowerment feeling really, that it was clear that was jiu-jitsu giving to me. And then I felt the taste of positive influences of that, and I dedicated more and more. And I just didn't practice at that time. I actually practiced, and very quickly I competed. And that also gave me a little extra boost of confidence, knowing I could do it at a competition level.
So I'm just wondering here, like, you had a history of judo prior to finding jiu-jitsu, and jiu-jitsu is really this thing that provided the confidence for you. It answered a lot of those questions, and it gave you that foot to stand on in verbal interactions and backed up by the physical. I'm just curious, was judo not providing that, or do you think it was maybe like the aspects of judo? Judo it's a beautiful sport, but there's definitely a discrepancy in size creates a very big advantage, right? If you have the size and power in judo against a smaller opponent, you have to be so technically proficient to edge that out. Whereas in jiu-jitsu, you could be outweighed by 50, 60 pounds, and you could really find a way to technically shut your opponent. Maybe you're not submitting your opponent, maybe you're not striking them, but at a minimum, you could protect yourself. So whatever altercation is happening, whatever physically is going on, you could slow that down, you could stop it long enough to get help, ask for help, whatever the situation is. So I'm not convinced that judo is not a good self-defense tactic, but when I look at the two, it seems like jiu-jitsu really provides the smaller guy, so to speak, with the bigger arsenal to protect themselves. So when you think about judo, your history of practicing judo as a kid and then ending up really finding this drive with jiu-jitsu. Was there a lack of recognition as judo being a sufficient form of self-defense for you?
It was, I don't believe it was not just a lack, it was something more there. Judo, it didn't click for me in a way jiu-jitsu did, because the way I felt about training, the way I felt like I could go all the way until the end, it made it more logical for me to understand all the complexity of that, what may come from an interaction. You know, I might take somebody down, I might be on the top, on the bottom, I can still stand my ground from any position, any angle, and it only finishes when that somebody taps out or time's up. But this is a competitive scene, but in a real scene, it's only stopping when I dominate someone or get dominated into a submission. It was much more clear. I was free to express myself in many different ways, not necessarily very static in the way you kind of structured in judo. Judo was a little bit static for me. But anyways, I'm not taking away the fact that judo can give you confidence. Judo can give you a lot of positive things, and judo is a beautiful art. I was inspired by it. But of course, the dynamics of judo, which is a rule-based takedown only, very small amount of time into submissions, and it didn't give you a complete feel that you can actually see through the challenge as it goes. It would be like more limited. But of course, I was just a young child. I'm sure I never really pursued judo to the high standard. And I'm sure a high standard judo could defend themselves. It could build those confidence. And I believe you can achieve that. And I really feel like what it did it for me is the way I felt when I trained. It seemed much more complete. And also, it gave me the feeling, it doesn't matter if I'm just small and skinny. I have a chance because I can use specific techniques. It's not about grab and pull and throw somebody. It's about the small details and using smart tactics to overcome the bigger person. And I felt that was really got me to fell in love with jiu-jitsu. And also the freedom that I had on the implementation of the game.
In terms of how to cultivate tactics or techniques and then use them to your own advantage, length, structure.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, it's really special. I could talk about the benefits of jiu-jitsu all day long and how impactful it's been in my life, but it's hard for me to pin sometimes what is so great about it in the moment, because my whole life has been spent as an athlete, from skiing competitively, strength training in the gym. All these things provide some form of like endorphin release, right? You get done with a ski competition, you feel top of the world. You strength train in the gym, you get done with a hard workout, you feel really great. But there's something really unique, and I don't really know exactly what it is about the flow of jiu-jitsu, the regulations of intensity, the teachings it gives you about yourself. When do you lose your temper? When do you lose your cool? When do you flip out? When do you lose your breath? Whatever it is, it's showing you that every single step of the way. Every single
time. Yeah, this is, I like to spend time thinking about those things as well. I'm a little bit like you. I like to talk about it. I like to think about it. And the way I kind of processed the reason why jiu-jitsu feels that way, number one, it connects important elements of a human being, right? It connects to our DNA in the ways that we used to hunt, to eat, the way we used to, even if you see cubs, they wrestle, they play wrestling, grappling, holding each other. It's a different type of endorphin release when you're actually trying to dominate something, trying to dominate you, and to human beings trying to dominate each other with tactics and triangles and holds, but also the fact that you are connected to other humans.
Yeah,
that is also the human element to it. This is something real that I think that's a lot of positivity for human contact. I think that is Is somewhere down the line we're made to connect, to be close. It gives us comfort, gives us safety. There's a lot of elements that play with the moment that you're close to someone, and builds respect, builds a lot of different things. And then because jiu-jitsu as well, it has another comparison. Everything that you learn in jiu-jitsu, right? Because it's all about implementation of your knowledge that's somehow very fulfilling. Let's suppose striking art, boxing, kickboxing, you can train to spar a lot if you want to, but there will be consequences. You punch each other in the head, you're gonna create brain damage to yourself and others if you train sparring full on every day.
Yep.
So you tend to replicate with pad work, bag work, drills, and also sparring, light sparring. And it's somehow the feeling of trying to express the full potential of the art, but you cannot do it in a regular basis because there are damaging consequences. Then you have the element of the fulfillment of implementing everything that you practice and learn. In jiu-jitsu, everything that you learn and you practice can be implemented, or you can try to implement against another human being into a high standard, to a high level of intensity, without the damaging effect that the submission may cause, because you only have to tap out before it hurts. Right. So it's a mental submission. You can hold on if you want to, and you'll be damaged. Right. But if you're smart, you tap out before and after. You can still experience the match to the fullest. So every day that you go to training, you go there, you practice your techniques, and you can try to pull it on the techniques you've learned at a high standard with exchange, and it feels real. It feels like everything that you learn you can implement it against resistance. So the ability that you have to fulfill the art to the highest level every single day without damaging each other, it feels incredible. He connects to the actual movements and the endorphin release that you have, plus the fulfillment of the knowledge you're trying to implement, where others are limited because of that aspect. And
definitely, I've noticed that in Jiu-Jitsu invites a wide array of people, right? In terms, you go into an academy and you're going to find young, high school aged men and women who are aggressive, who are explosive, who have resilience, that could train 15 days a week. You're also going to find 58-year-olds. You're going to find, we have one of our most recent black belts is in his 70s. I mean, you're going to find the whole spectrum of people that are capable of course, training at slightly different variations of intensity, right? A 70-year-old's not going to train the same as an 18-year-old, but the fact that they can both be there at the same time is really special. Whereas, and this is not to dog on judo. I think judo is fantastic, and I also think it's really important for aspects of jiu-jitsu in that we start standing, so understanding elements of judo can be very beneficial. But if you are truly training judo, the throws, the slams, and your body repeatedly hitting the floor, if you're, to your exact point, going to train at that intensity where it's like almost real, you can't be, maybe you can. Maybe there's some people in their 60s and 70s that could do that, but it's a serious toll on the body. You can't spar at 100% all the time, because if you get punched in the head all the time at 100%, what's the lifespan on that? It's very short. And I struggle with that because I love Muay Thai. I really do enjoy it. I love the movement and the flow of standing up and the techniques and learning. But when the sparring's harder or it's elevated, I need my brain the rest of my life. I know that. I'm not going to be a professional fighter, right? I'm a hobbyist and an enthusiast. I'm not going to try to get into the UFC. So the risk reward is really bad for me. If I get punched in the head 10 times really bad in the next 5 years, that's horrible for me, right? If it affected my cognition or my ability to hold a conversation or to think or to do stuff like this, now it's greatly affecting my life. Whereas I could roll jiu-jitsu every single day, take care of my body, make sure that I'm, take care of my neck and my back and doing the right things proactively. but I'll be able to maintain that for, I mean, I don't know how long, 20 years, 30 years, like maybe the rest of my life.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's special. That is a really, to see longevity in what you're doing is a really motivating part of doing it, I think.
No, you're right. Everything that you just said there, it really connects with me, and also it allows us to evolve in our ability to train, because you're no longer training with a short-term view, but you're training with a long-term view. And the level of intensity on your training, how you pursue techniques and how you defend technique changes if you think about your longevity. And that's why as a competitor, it kind of is difficult to maintain the high level competition for so long without damaging your body, in your prime time. And then I had to really learn how to change my level of training without looking for a competition. Because now I have some micro injuries from the wear and tear that I need to constantly look to. But I wouldn't have those if I wouldn't be trying to compete at the highest level. I'll be much more carry with my body if I train for no competition. But it still, after so long training to a decent level, I still can train today. I can still be physical. I can still be intense in my training. And I just look into how can I train for longer. So I will adapt my jiu-jitsu. I will not do some specific movements and rows, and I will just play a different game. And jiu-jitsu gives you that flexibility. You can play different games, different strategies, and still be part of the game without compromising your health. And you're learning, it just makes you explore more in jiu-jitsu. Find a way. That's one of the things that really gets me.
I really hope that the newer people to jiu-jitsu that are listening to this really listen to that, because if there's one thing that I could go back and say to myself when I got started is accept that you're going to do this for 20 years. Just know that now, today, you're going to do this for a long time, because what happens and what I see now, having been doing this for a while, you see that it's just like, gym memberships in January, right? Excitement is super high. People are highly motivated. They're excited to start something new, and they get into something like jiu-jitsu, and they go so hard in the beginning, and they don't anticipate the wear on the body, and they don't really see that, like, they're going to be doing this for a long time. There's a million lessons to glean from this art form, and it burns people out, and they get injured, or they get frustrated, and they can't get past the frustration because they don't understand that it's just part of the process, part of the learning process, right? And I'm curious, when it sounds like certainly towards the tail end of competition, but was there a point in your journey from 15 to now where you really started to shift and see this as like, this is my life. This is not just something that I'm doing today. This is what I'm on the planet to do. And when you recognize that, did it shift your approach in training and off the mats? Like, what was that process like?
That's a good one, because for me, that divides in a few different parts. One of them, I knew that I wanted to practice jiu-jitsu independent of money, independent of my position. I wanted to keep practicing jiu-jitsu. And that is actually a question we ask ourselves on a car, talking to my friends, going to a tournament. And the conversation was, would you be doing this if you'd be really rich and didn't need this you didn't think about making any money with it or not? Would you still do jiu-jitsu and try to do what you're doing now, compete, if you would be doing a completely different course in university? What would be the thing that you would do? And then everybody just looked to each other and said, I'll be doing this no matter what. Yeah. So it was very early stages that I recognized the benefits and how I felt about training, and it was my identity, be part of a jiu-jitsu school and be with my teammates. Then, of course, this was a commitment to train no matter what. But then later, I had to coming to terms what I'm doing with my life. And that's only when I moved to the United Kingdom. I was 19 years old and had an opportunity to teach a class for the first time. And I felt like I was having fun the whole time. It never felt like a job. I felt I could do this for no money, and I'd do it for much longer than I had to do on that day, and I still got paid. In the end, to get paid for something I loved, it felt like a crime. It was really weird. I'm doing something wrong. Should I really take this money? Did I really earn it? Because it didn't feel like. Maybe it was just a completely different mindset that we had, that fun cannot be connected with job. Right. And then we had to overcome this. But anyway, it's a different conversation. But that is when I decided, okay, that is possible for me to pursue a living doing something I'm passionate about. That feeling really hit me. And then that was the day I decided. I went to the UK to see to see the waters, learn English and do something different. And I was on a break from my university course. And that's when I decided I'm going to pursue Jiu-Jitsu. I'm going to live from Jiu-Jitsu. And that's what I'm going to do. And that was me thinking, I'm going to train to be a competitor. I'm going to be the best competitor I can be. And that's going to be my journey. I will do, if I have to teach to accomplish that, I will do that. And I'll figure my way out. And then that was the third stage, a stage of recognizing the purpose I had inside the sport. And that is a stage that I'm living the last few shorter years after my actual, just before, I could say 2-3 years before my retirement, I was already clicked into this. I was just completing my cycle and transition to a new one. And that was another stage just before my retirement, 2016. Maybe 2014, I was already defined what I want to do in my life.
Did you have any fear around that departure, leaving competition behind and really accepting that you are now moving into this role as a teacher, as an advocate, as something? I can only imagine that that's very difficult to maybe turn that side of you off. No?
Yes, 100%. And this is one of the things I share a lot with the people closer to me, as students and people that I support inside the team. It's a journey to get to understand who you are that I had to go through, and understanding Jiu-Jitsu in a bigger picture, not just in the short term of a tournament. I had to really come into terms that what do I want for the rest of my life? Right? What am I going to do for the rest of my life after my competitive career? That is a big question. Jiu-Jitsu was definitely decided a long time ago. I knew Jiu-Jitsu is the path. It's part of my passion, my purpose is all there. But it was really recognizing that what I needed to do to achieve where I was at that time is one thing. It's train hard, compete, train Jiu-Jitsu, repeat. And it's doing this all the time. But what I needed to do for my next stage of life was a very different thing than I had to do until that part. When I recognized that is a moment that I needed to look for different heights and different things, which was filled by understanding my purpose in Jiu-Jitsu. And that's where I made the shift. I completed the years and I wanted to do what I prepared to do for my competition career. So I live it with I can call it wash my hands and do what I feel like I had to do. And it was not defined by a title, by the way. I really wanted to get the world title in the IBJJF. And it was about how much, what I was prepared to do to achieve that. And I want to make sure that I'm not going to leave until I do everything that I believed I had to do to achieve that. Right? And that was a critical moment for me. And then I made a deal with myself, because at that time I had a family, I had things that I want to develop, and I gave that time to myself. And what the hard thing was to come to terms that my identity will shift. And then until that time, my identity was I am an athlete, I am a competitor. I am a guy who trains hard to go and try to win titles in many tournaments, worlds, ADCC, whatever I was going to. And now that I don't compete anymore, who is Victor? That is a very daunting feeling, because I never done anything else but be training Jiu-Jitsu, train my students, and train myself. and manage my school. That's the only thing I knew how to do. And that feeling, it had to break. I had to break myself. I had to break the ego that I had about who I built myself to be. This guy who goes into a tournament, many people come and talk to me because I was in evidence at that time. Victor will no longer be recognized by the generations to come because people forget who you are as a competitor very quickly. And I needed to come to terms, okay, my relevance will not be by how much I won. My relevance needs to be done by how much I contribute. So I started to really having conversations with myself. Who is the new Victor? Who is this person? But I never built that person yet. Right. I needed to build that person. So I had to go accept the fact that the Victor, the competitor, will pass. And now Victor needs to build a new self. And then my identity has to be rebuilt, but then my value, my internal value was me as an athlete. So I had to learn to value myself for who I was, not for what I did. That was a moment of turmoil in my mind, right? There was a lot of beating of my own ego. I was already trying to come to terms, and I got to a point where I realized, okay, I can see what I need to be, what I need to do. I need to impact more than myself. I need to use Jiu-Jitsu as a platform to help people better themselves, fulfill their potential in Jiu-Jitsu or through Jiu-Jitsu. That was my mission. Since then, that has been my mission. And I have the platform of Gracie Barra to do so. Try to help people to live a life they're proud of. Live the life that impacts positively in the community by helping kids, adults, women, and people in needs. They need to find themselves with Jiu-Jitsu, and I want to be able to support that in entity level, personal level, and be immersed into this journey and be true to myself. So that took time, and that's what I probably can tell to a lot of people, whoever is listening. It takes time to build a new identity, but you don't need to be afraid to make a change, because what we need to understand is that your value as a person is not on what you do, but who you are, and what you build to be as a competitor is the lessons you've learned, the process that you experience, everything that you became, who you became on a process to become the best you can be on that particular department. That needs to be replicated in different elements of your life, but you need to find ways that you can continue to evolve, right? Beyond the tournaments, beyond the competitive career, and challenge yourself, be uncomfortable again. And this is how I felt like I was doing. I didn't know how it was going to become in 6 years, 10 years from there, but I knew that I was going to use all my skills from competitive career to apply into my new life. And that gave me confidence that it's only a matter of time I will embody a new version of myself. I just needed to know where I was going. And I knew it, and I've been pursuing that journey ever since.
It's always impressive to hear people walk away with conviction, which is a lot different than walking away. A lot of people walk away with regret, or they walk away and they leave the door open and they wonder and they get pulled back, or they think, well, I'm healthier now than I was a year ago, and if I just put in the time, and if I think I could work a little bit harder, I could push a little bit harder. That guy's not that good anymore. Whatever those voices in the head never go away. They talk to you every single day. I remember that from skiing. I made a similar decision when I was 18 to stop pursuing skiing because all I wanted to do was go to the Olympics. That was it. That's all I thought about that every single day of my childhood was I'm going to go to the Olympics. And I was 9 spots away from the U.S. ski team when I was 18, and I had a fork in the road of like, do I want to pursue this and dedicate every single ounce of my body to this for the next 2-3 years? And the Olympic year was 3 away, so I knew it would be a 3-year push to try to make the team and get there. Or do I want to pursue an education and continue like evolving my life. And it was really, really hard. It was so hard. And when I decided, it was a lot of factors. It was injury. It was likelihood of re-injury. It was trajectory. It was education. It was all these things, family. And it was really hard when I decided to stop skiing to just close the door, because then I would watch my competitors. I'd watch people I used to ski against. I would go skiing. It had to actually get to a point where I just didn't even ski, which is weird to think. You spend your entire childhood doing it. It would be like you just closing the doors on jiu-jitsu for 2 years and not doing it. But it was kind of the only way that I could move beyond it and stop wondering. And then, well, on the other side of that, you start to feel the confidence again of your decision, and you're reaffirmed that you've made the right choice. And I just see, even for being exposed to you as long as I have, which is not that long relative to your career, the embodiment of like this advocate for not only for Gracie Barra, but also the sport, for the outreach to help other people that want to get involved or that want to ascend up or be competitive or do it as a hobby. You can see that that's you're doing that, right? Like you've accepted that that's the next part of you, and that's something that I think a lot of people struggle with, is to decide, finite, move on.
That's true. It's about being. I think that I read this book called The Journey of Success by John C. Maxwell. I did read this book when I was 18 years old, and that helped me to make a decision to pursue Jiu-Jitsu as my passion, my dream. And then it talks a lot about having clarity about what is your dream. Yeah. And people sometimes, they can have dreams that are confused with destinations. Like my dream is to be a world champion. But then what is a destination? Your dream cannot be a destination. Right. It needs to be a journey,
process,
and a process. And then I really felt like I needed to really understand well myself, to understand what do I really want for my life. What is the dream? What is the dream? Everybody's got a different one, and you have to pursue your dream. But if you don't have clarity about what is the dream and how can you pursue great things, maybe you even achieve what you set up to go to, but when you find out you got there, it didn't give you the feeling that you thought you were going to have.
This happens all the time.
All the time, because people are trapped to create an illusion what they think they want for themselves. But the question needs to be always asked. The journey is the journey of your dream rather than the destination of your dream, where you want to be one day so you are happy. It's the same conversation about happiness, right? Yeah. When I buy the house, I'll be happy. When I open my own academy, I'll be happy. You're not going to be happy, because once you get there, you're going to think, how about the next thing? And you can never build, we can't be building all our ounces of our body, the energy that you have, only for a destination. And then once you try to think beyond the destination, you think about living every day of your life in a particular way. And that needs to be guiding you into the dream life, which is the way you live the life. How can you live the life of your dreams? Is it just having money? It's not about having money. It's about how you spend your day. And also a big thing, I think people underestimate the giving element. Be of us, serve your community, serve the people. That is an incredible feeling that you have when you actually feel that you matter and you're relevant in other people's lives.
I think that's one part of jiu-jitsu, I think, that is ingrained in this. You kind of hit on it earlier, is almost like a DNA level thing, is when you go into an academy, no matter the level of tenacity, aggression, relaxation, whatever the vibe is of the place, and you've been to many different schools, you've competed in many different tournaments all over the world, each school kind of has its own vibe to it. no matter what, all the people inside of that building that are on that mat together, they're trying to make each other better, that is a really, really unique setting. And it's not something that you necessarily would find in an office building. If you went into a small corporation, right, the sales team's not trying to make the marketing team better. The marketing team's not trying to make the CEO's life better. Maybe they're working on similar goals, but that physical Victor is trying to make me a better practitioner by training with me, and vice versa. It's this really positive thing, and sometimes you don't even notice it because there's, maybe someone taps somebody else and they're exhausted, or accidentally somebody gets hurt, or there's these things that flare up in a setting. But at the end of the day, every person, they bow to each other out of respect. They work their ass off to whatever their ability is, whether they can work really hard or just a little bit. They're all trying to make each other better. And then when it's all said and done, it's handshakes and hugs and respect. And that's a crazy environment. And it's really addicting. It's addicting to be part of that.
It's because it's authentic.
Yeah.
It's real. And you feel it every single moment. Yeah. And also, in order for you to train jiu-jitsu someone, you have to have trust with that person. Mm-hmm. Because if you put in your body in the hands of somebody else, your health in the hands of somebody else. And the fact that that's why it's important for whoever is listening as well to think about what sort of school are you training in? Because it'd be amazing if the reality that you just described would be of every school.
Right.
But unfortunately, they're not. Yeah. And that's why looking for schools that value that kind of culture. Mm-hmm. Culture of respect, mutual support, collaboration is important. Not just trying to beat each other and just go home.
And it doesn't mean weakness either. Sometimes people equate that with weakness or being less than, that they don't train hard enough. That's not true at all. You can be super respectful and have intentions of making your teammates better, and you can train really, really tough.
That's true.
So it's not a mutually exclusive world. And I'd implore anyone to listen to find a school that allows those things to exist in the same place. Because you're right. There are some, like with anything, right? I mean, there's restaurants that serve bad food. There's personal trainers that don't care about their clients' health and well-being. So it's all something that can happen. And
that's the best thermometer for that is ego management.
Mm-hmm. How do you manage ego now as someone who's competed at the highest levels, as someone who has embodied this position as an advocate in the sport and a leader in the sport? How do you manage and allow, and that's an important part of this, how do you allow ego to exist? Because to some degree, ego is really beneficial, right? If you let's say that you're competing against somebody, ego is going to be the thing that makes you think that you can win. And that's an important part of confidence. But then there's this bad side of ego too that can be destructive to the quality or the energy of a school. It can be destructive to your teammates. So how do you, Victor, view ego, and how do you manage it with your students?
That's a really big question, because this is something for me, the balance of those two is in my opinion, the ideal for a great athlete, right? And if you think about the ego, they need to be completely broken in order for you to explore and don't care and don't allow your self-worth to be based on your ability to win a training. Your self-worth is not by not tapping to someone. Your self-worth is not about, just be the person who wins. Your self-worth is how you handle all the positive and the negative parts of training. When you're under pressure, how you handle yourself. When you lose a match, how do you handle yourself? I think if you have your ego managed, you can explore technique, you can explore your development without the worry or fear of being caught out and tap out or lose positions, and you can be fulfilling that best self and evolve and don't care about what it means to be tapped. And in order to be great winners, you need to know, to handle yourself when you're at the lowest. It speaks loud about people like this. But at the same time, you need to want to be that to prove to yourself and to whenever you go to a tournament, you want to prove that you can accomplish those things. You can express the best possible form of jiu-jitsu art, You can explore yourself to the max, being challenged to the highest level and still perform. And this is an inner battle. Something that you got to do it for yourself. Because if you do it for others, that is a challenge right there. You still feel the responsibility to represent your team, represent the people around you, the people who helped you. But truly, you want to be doing this to better yourself, to show to yourself that you can accomplish those things. And I think it's important to have that ego that you want to prove it. But then when you want to prove it to just bring fame to yourself or to bring attention to yourself because you're trying to feed the lack of confidence that you have in yourself. And that when ego becomes toxic because you lose the sense of confidence versus our arrogance. Confidence and arrogance, they're really, really close together.
Very close.
They're very close. And then I feel like some people, they like to play the arrogant because they're trying to tell themselves they can do things. But really it's because they believe they can't. They're trying to tell themselves otherwise. They're trying to speak very loudly that they want to be recognized in a particular way by the community. They don't feel like they are valued in their hearts, I feel like you need to value yourself and don't need the affirmation and the recognition of others to do great.
Do you feel, sorry to interrupt, on that point specifically, at the high level of jiu-jitsu competition, and when you were competing, to some regard, it's the heyday, right? You have some of the biggest names in the last 20 years all competing at the same time together. And I'm curious, are there athletes that carry too high a level of that ego even at that level? Because I think the perception is that, as everyone goes through jiu-jitsu, I feel like if you took 50 people who had been training for between 1 and 5 years, you're going to get a pretty big agreement that people's perception of how they thought they were changed, right? That they got surprised by jiu-jitsu. They realized that they didn't have the skills that they thought they had, or they weren't as tough as they thought they were, or they thought they would just kind of have their way with people, but they were surprised by the technique and the skill of someone smaller. Many people have this same kind of evolution in jiu-jitsu, and it's a powerful part of that connection is that it's reshaping who you think you are in the moment, and that's addicting because now you're curious and you want to know more. But as you get past that, up into your level at black belt, everyone's been doing this 15, 20 years. You're globally elite. Everyone could win on any day, right? It's so competitive and so technical. But do you still find that some athletes carry that level of ego, that negative side of ego? And how do you approach that in a match?
That's when I see somebody, to be honest, in my generation, there is very few people that I recognize somebody with a high ego. I think that, I don't know if you feel that way, but in the last maybe 6 to 6 years, I would say lately, it's been a boom of the jiu-jitsu media. Yeah, people getting recognition. People are there's a really strong media in jiu-jitsu. There are people talking about, more people are practicing, more people are watching jiu-jitsu competitions, and that is now there are people with success that have to be speaking out loud, speaking and build themselves with words and trying to bring this arrogance, almost like Conor McGregor style, that you speak bad mouth and you're loud and you bring attention to yourself because jiu-jitsu is going in a direction where people are trying to create personal branding.
Yeah.
And sometimes, depending on where that culture is really well established, that is this acceptable arrogance for those who can deliver. I look at Gordon Ryan. He's a perfect example of that, in my opinion. He's, in my opinion, the best no-gi grappler of this generation. Yeah. There's no question on his ability to perform and deliver great jiu-jitsu. It was great watching him at ADCC. It was incredible. And he's also known to be very arrogant. Right. Even himself agreed to that because he made statements of that in the past. Yeah. But also, why does he perform that way? He also is a smart marketing person. Yeah. So he's leveraging the moment of media and the moment of he's replicating what other stars of other sports have created. Muhammad Ali. You're talking about Conor McGregor, Floyd Mayweather. Yeah. And somehow that I am the best kind of approach, which is crosses the line of confidence versus arrogance, and the arrogance, when it's backed up, it works, but when it doesn't, it looks really bad. Right. And it's in a line where people are doing those things to be able to bring attention and build their personal brand and bring in attention and relevance from themselves, so they can worth more in a pay-per-view fight, and so on. Right. So now it's a generation of people that have been inspired to behave in a particular way that are more in line with those ideas. And I think that I'm not even, this is the way it is. Jiu-Jitsu is right now. Right. I mean, I'm not trying to criticize anyone here, but that is an element of that happening now, the arrogance. But this thing is, somebody like Gordon, I'm sure he doesn't train with arrogance because he has to explore every moment, every angle of Jiu-Jitsu. I'm sure he doesn't have an ego training. And he's using his ego to try to be the king and be the guy who he's trying to be. And it's great to see somebody fulfilling the standard of Jiu-Jitsu. But then, in my opinion, I feel like athletes have also a responsibility to inspire the good moral values, right? That's for me it's a bigger problem than any of the athletes. It's a problem of our culture. Yeah. The culture of people that praises this approach, and they don't value the good moral values. They like to see the star being the guy who beats. Oh, do you want to see them lose? You want to see them win? It's like that kind of a mentality, you know?
I'm not convinced exactly how I feel about all this, because it's actually it's a very complex issue. I don't know if it's a problem, but it is an issue. So, I think this is true for most sports near their infancy. And Jiu-Jitsu's been around a long time, but if you look at it in like the public sphere, it's new and it's gained traction, right? And with traction is more eyes. And what happens is you want both things. Like, you want jiu-jitsu to spread. You want more people to be exposed to it. You want the person that feels a lack of self-confidence, that feels weak, to have a leg to stand on. You want them to have the experience you have. I want them to have the experience that I've had. And the best way for that to happen to more total people around the world is for the sport to grow. So sports grow because of stars. That's true for anything, right? Like, why do people want to play football? Because they want to score goals like Messi, or they want to score goals like Ronaldinho, right? It's that idolization of this person that excites you to throw the jersey on and go in your backyard and start to learn to juggle and then start to learn to score. And so these stars become an important part of growth. But with growth and social media, which is the real problem, it creates this drive for algorithmic success. So when you make something, you want it to track, and you want it to get engagement, and you want it to get likes, and you want it to get shares. And when that's the underlying metric, what gets shared? A car accident or someone giving flowers to an old person? People watch the car accident all day long. It's for whatever reason, we're drawn towards chaos and towards the heel, right? And so Gordon is playing this character You see it in wrestling all the time, right? Wrestling is fake. We know that. They train hard, but it's fake. And what do you see in wrestling? Characters. And what do characters do? They play storylines. And so they have the evil guy, and they have the person getting back at the other person, the swindler and the rich dude. Like, all the caricatures show up. And so now you have this weird time where on one side you have this phenomenal grappler, absolute phenom, one of the currently the best of all time, right? No-gi grappler in Gordon. But you also have the opportunity to grow the character in the sport. And so what does he do? Because like you said, I bet you if you went to B team and you showed up as Victor and to train, they would respect that 100%. And it would be productive training, and you would all learn from each other. And Gordon would be respectful, and the coaches would be respectful, and everyone would go about their day.
And
but
that's exactly
different.
And that is exactly my point. And this is where I have got the opportunity to meet him. And I actually, because the perception that we have from social media is one thing, but in person he's a completely different person. He's still very opinionated, but he's got a people skills. And so again, that is this element that benefits the sport, but it's a sword that cuts both ways.
Yeah.
Right?
No, because I think about when I was a kid, like what martial arts weren't an option to me when I was younger in the town I grew up in, because it was a ski town. They now have a jiu-jitsu academy, but that years later. What drew me towards martial arts in the beginning was this martial code, this like weird level of respect that was kind of underwritten. So you watch Hoist go into the ring, right? Is it fireworks and gun? No, it's his dad with his shoulders on his hands and his brother with his hands
family.
On his hands. It's family, it's honor, it's respect. It's he's in the gi. He's fighting guys in a gi, in a sport where sweat is advantageous to slip in and out of positions, right? But he is upholding this value and this whole idea. And like when you see that, I was just like, wow, like that. So that's, to me, when I was younger, that's like the Ronaldinho soccer moment. I see that and I'm like, there was something about that respect, honor, code thing that was just like nothing I had seen before. Then you see it in Hollywood a little bit, like in Bruce Lee movies, right? There's this code that he's operating on. It's martial arts, right? It's like the martial code of this art form. And you see that maybe starting to go away a little bit.
Yes, 100%. But one of the things you probably could have seen at ADCC, I personally, for the first time, I watched Gordon fighting, and I saw the way he approached with Andre Galvão, and how respectful, honorable, how he was not pushed around with a slap in the beginning of the match, how he showed respect to Andre Galvão in the end, how he didn't make a big deal about himself. I felt like that was a very surprising and very positive approach that he was doing it. I came out with a different image of him when I saw that, because I saw genuine feeling and care and respect. And that for me is already, if he balances being confident and respectful, he's still going to be Gordon, the biggest guy, but he's also going to impact positively new generations. I feel like that is a happy medium, and people still going to want to watch him fight, not because he's screaming about it, because he is.
Yeah,
great to watch. That is for me, that is a moment, but that's, I guess, it's about trying to create something. And then the fact that he's been doing what he does also creates polemica, and then it's the way it is. But I felt positive anyways, but that is not the only one. There is other people who are going to go on the same path, and I think that can create an influence to others that might not be so positive. But how much positive is influence in jiu-jitsu versus the negative, and then is another conversation. But I do feel like we truly need to, I feel like we as martial artists, people who are in the front line, we need to give a good example for the kids, good example for the new generation, and need to inspire them to be better people. And this for me important, And I feel like there are many other athletes that do this. When I see Georges St. Pierre, he was one of the greatest.
Yeah.
And look, his ethos, his way of communicating, he was confident. He spoke about his ability and how he trusted his ability, how he was going to beat people. He created showmanship. Yep. He created personal brand, but he kept within the brackets of a good moral man.
You know, at the end of the day, no matter, you got to live with yourself, right? No matter what, whether you played the heel or not, whether you created the character or not, the person that goes home at night that looks you in the mirror, that's you. And so if you're comfortable portraying those types of characters or not, then that's like it's an individual level. I'm curious. I watched ADCC from my couch, and I was just blown away at the spectacle of this event. If you look relative to the year prior, and then if you go all the way down the line, what was it like being there? What was the energy like?
I was in a situation where I have competed before. It was nowhere near, and I have this such a positive feeling to know that jiu-jitsu is being showcased in such a high spectacle. And I felt proud to have been part of the organization. I felt proud that our sport, it's been in this level. And I know this is just the beginning as well. And it felt like the athletes were given respect and appreciation, and they were valued for the real hard work that goes behind the scenes. I felt like they brought a light on the stars of the event, right? Yeah. It's not only one; it's many of them, and it was amazing to see that through 12 hours, all seats were filled, and there was not this thing, I'm gonna come back later, you know.
Right.
And there's not that many things to eat either. There was like no, everybody was there, quickly bringing snacks and even ordering things online but going back to the seat, and it was beautiful to see the atmosphere. And we had a crowd that understood jiu-jitsu, not a crowd who just likes jiu-jitsu.
Yes.
They cheered up for the hook that went inside that was dangerous, and the setup for the takedown that almost got in, but nothing happened, but there was almost happened, you know. And it was great to see that the crowd was truly engaged, and everybody so nice and a good vibe. There was no anger or bad words. There was like a really positive energy, and everybody was so chuffed to be over there.
I resonate with that feeling so much. Whenever I travel, I always try to find an academy and drop in, and it's just so cool when you can be somewhere completely on the other side of the planet, and you drop in to train, and that the only common ground, the only pre-existing thing is that you like jiu-jitsu, right? You don't know them. They don't know you. You know nothing about each other. You don't even know if you trust each other yet. But you can go in and you can just, it's like you're part of this family that's everywhere, that it is really special. And I can only imagine that in a setting like that. I mean, you bring up a really interesting point that I haven't heard before, which is the intelligence of the crowd relative to the sport. So if you go to a football game in America, you have a lot of fans there for sure, but you also have a lot of people that are going with their friend, or you have a lot of people that are not doing anything that day, right? Or maybe they watch one game a year. Yeah. But not every single person in the fans understands football the way that the fans understood grappling, what's going on. And that is such a good thing for the growth, the genuine growth, the right kind of growth, like we were talking about, of the sport, of the awareness, is that you have a whole stadium full of people that understand a movement adjustment, the really fine details like that. It's a really good knock on the sport. I wonder, having been through the whole elite competitive ring and compete at the level that you have, and now in the role that you're in, and going to an event like that, having been an ADCC competitor in the past, if you look into like the future of jiu-jitsu, right, like the potential destination where jiu-jitsu is headed, and right now we're kind of in the journey of it, what do you think happens to gi jiu-jitsu in the wake of the growth of ADCC, and how many people, I think because of the proximity to mixed martial arts, are also training no gi as their starting point?
I think that he opens up a possible conversation for quite controversial and could be so many different directions, because the divide between gi and no gi is so it's been spoken a lot more today. But it's funny enough, but in the past that happened as well. There was a lot of comments, a lot of people going to no gi and MMA correlations, and it feels like it goes into waves of priority, like a media attention, and the excitement of the no gi definitely adds to the entertainment aspect. So there will be always an interest, and probably will continue to grow more and more over time. But I don't think jiu-jitsu in the gi will ever be like compromised, because the way you train, gi is also a different experience, a different feel. It's even though they are like pretty much the same thing, but feels different. You can create different things and accomplish different things. And I feel that I like to train the thing that I spend the most doing, because I feel like I'm building a game, I'm building myself, but I enjoy the different experiences that gi and no gi brings to me. I embrace it with excitement. I also feel the gi techniques are much more technical, much more complex, and it gives the smaller person bigger chances.
Yes.
Than the no gi, and I feel like that will always be a relevance. Maybe people, when you go to a school of jiu-jitsu, there are schools now dedicated more to no gi, but there's a lot of interest to gi jiu-jitsu as well, because there's also the ethos of the belt ranking, the system, the code, the feel, how the uniform fits in you. It's kind of it almost is the embodiment of all the values. It's right there together with the uniform. I feel like there will be much more priority into a no-gi scene. I think no-gi is gonna be a bigger part of our jiu-jitsu school. There will be like the need for adjustments on schools, an increasing number of classes, opening extra mat spaces, and make equal, and you will see that people have room to do both. But I don't think jiu-jitsu with the gi will be diluted. I don't think it will. It will continue to grow and develop. It's the same. Some people like strawberry, some people like blueberry.
I like them both.
I like them both.
Yeah,
exactly.
I've always felt like I learn a lot of body awareness from no-gi training, in that the quickness that you tend to go from position to position, or the weight distribution of how to stall a position by using your body weight, not by using a grip. And then that only benefits gi training, because if you better understand where your body is in space, or where your leverage is or your pressure, then you're going to have more opportunities to control the situation. I wonder, where did the Estima Lock originate out of no-gi or gi training?
Actually, no-gi.
And how did you find that?
Well, there's a story of frustration on that move, because go back a little bit. In 2009, I competed in a final of the Rio Open against Bihian. At that time, he came to the scene of competition. He beat Tassis Humphreys really fast. And then I went to fight him. I was going up a division. I was middleweight, trying to hit medium heavy. He was with a very dangerous footlock. at that time, I was very comfortable with foot locks, straight foot locks. I never felt like my foot was under that much pressure. I always find a way to kind of wiggle myself out. I trained with some good people with the foot lock, but I felt like confident on defending. But this guy made it feel like my foot's going to come off the bone. And it was just in a straight foot lock. Yeah. And I lost the match. My foot was blown away. And I had to go sore with my foot, and with my ego crushed a little, isn't it? I was coming from a very good journey on competitions. Still I think it was my 30 years of black belt. Then I came home with that feeling. 2009 was also the year where I was helping my brother prepare for ADCC 2009. It's the year that he won double gold. And Braulio was in great shape. He was preparing for a while. And I'm the younger brother, smaller. And I was still trying to catch up with my standard. And he definitely had the edge in most movement. And especially when you were so prepared, I couldn't even see the light of day. I couldn't even see how I could start passing his guard. Yeah. He was so prepared, so pressureful, that would invert on me and then try to get my leg. He would sweep me, get to the top, and that was full of locks, inverted triangles. He was getting it. And it was so hard for me. But then I kept thinking about that feeling that I had with the foot lock. And I remember, if I needed to get a foot lock, I need to make the foot feel like it's going to pop out the skin. That it's going to come off the bone. They have to feel that way so people tap, because I never thought I was going to tap in a tournament, a foot lock, unless my foot's going to come out.
Right.
So that was the origin. Then I started to play with my brother, and then I couldn't pass. I couldn't achieve anything. But he kept trying to invert inside my left leg, try to catch my leg, to push me away, to enter inside my leg, to drop my balance, and try to invert the triangles. And then I kept looking at his foot. I couldn't pass. I couldn't do it. Just defend. I saw the foot in the middle, and I locked his toes in my belly, and I literally locked a rear naked choke, and I pulled back. He basically screamed really, really fast. And I was a bit shocked, because I was not catching Braulio much in those years. And I don't know why he's so prepared. And then maybe I thought that his foot was hurt or sore, something. I felt like it was too easy to be true. And then we continued to play in the same round, to continue the time, and he did it again. I went again, BOW! And I did 2 times in the same row with my brother. That never happened before. That's impossible. And then the time finished, and then my brother asked me, Victor, what the hell did you do on that movement? I said, are you okay with your foot? Because I thought you were hurt. And no, man, it was going to hurt if I didn't do it. And I was like, okay. And I showed him what to do. I locked onto my belly, played around, and I showed him the movement. And then we then started talking about how other ways that position shows, and how can we do different things. We brainstormed together. And then I kept trying to do that move all the time with him, with others. And then ADCC came, and he fought Rafael Lovato. Yeah. And I'm on the second match of his division. And with 30 seconds of the match, Braulio locked the foot, the rear naked choke, and pulled back, and Lovato really quickly tapped. And there was like a shock in the system. Nobody understood what it was. And I looked at him and I said, can't believe you did it. It was kind of I was something that I felt really proud that I created, and he the one pulled it first in a tournament. It was kind of the test in the water. If he works in ADCC in the highest level, he works against anyone. Right. And then I saw, it's a funny situation. Maybe Shanji and Lovato hear this comment now. They will laugh a little bit. But I saw them. I was walking by, and they were doing an aftermath of the position. And Lovato at that time just made a comment. Yeah, my foot was stuck on a short. I don't know what happened. Just locked, and then he got caught. And in my mind, he was not stuck on the short. He was all planned out. And I just kept it to my heart at that time. I kept it inside. And And that's when it was created, and Braulio made it the first one in a tournament. And I think in 2000, I kind of, every tournament I've ever competed, after that, I probably got one person, two people on that move.
Yeah.
And
I think Wikipedia has some insane stat for you on how many Estima locks that you had submitted in tournament. And I was like, but that is something that's so cool too about jiu-jitsu, is you think about how long jiu-jitsu's been around, yet it still allows for creativity. It allows you as a practitioner to, in the heat of the moment, in that passive state where your body's more reacting to what's going on and less than you thinking about it, and you just, boom, you create something based on instinct, only to find out that it's not a farce, that actually you really did create something.
That was something new, yeah. This is a, Abe, I never really thought at that time that was going to become something. I knew there was something so specific to me that I locked it, I did it, and then we started to systemize it, and I started to implement and find success. And then the interesting fact about this is in 2011, I went to fight the world's no-gi. And then on the same week, I booked to do the Estima Lock DVD with the Judo videos. Yeah. I don't know if you remember that time, but it was 2011. I spent about 3 hours recording a whole instructionals on many different types of Estima Locks. And that was the first time we put a name to it. Nobody really said name before. So when I put the DVD on, I called it Estima Lock. And then I practiced for 3 hours recording that thing. And then at my matches, I submitted all my matches in the middleweight division in World's No-Gi with an Estima Lock. It was like all of them. And I was so sharp because I practiced for 3 hours, the same moves. It felt sweet. Yeah. And then I think it was from that point, that the people got to see what it was. And then other athletes started to implement in different situations. Buchecha did so many. Right. Other athletes did so many that I've seen, friends of mine, students of mine, and became something that stayed.
You mentioned, and I thought that we actually might touch on this in the beginning, but I really liked the path that we've taken here. You mentioned your brother, and I've listened to you talk about comparison before, and I think it's really important that we touch on this because comparison, the old saying, comparison is the death of joy. It's an opportunity for you to be distracted from your own life and start to think about what ifs, and if I only had this or that or whatever it is, it can become very toxic. But comparison can also be a motivator. It can be a driving force. It like an ego, right? It has both sides to the coin. And I'm curious, maybe you can take me back to when you and Braulio were kids. What was childhood like for you two, and then what was high-level competition like for you guys?
I think both of us were very competitive since we were kids. I think me being a younger child, I felt very much in competition with my brother in everything I've ever done. Now I have a younger son, and I know his response to the older brother, and probably was very similar to my response. I felt like I didn't know my age, I didn't know my position. I just thought that I was incapable to do what my brother does. It felt like somehow everything that he did better than me. It felt like I could never do as good. And it was always something so hard to take as a young child. But at the same time, Braulio was there competing in a similar sports to me and with the years ahead. And I think that somehow I was always comparing myself and trying to reach his standard in everything I did since I grew up. Probably since I tried to walk faster than he did because I wanted to just do what he does. Yeah. That goes from baby stage all the way to the top. And there were things as well that he motivated my brother that I only found out in the future when I was already a grown up. Because the fact that I was able to do well at football and be well recognized. I was playing for good teams, and he was not able to do the same. It made him want to do more because his younger brother was doing it.
Right.
And somehow we pushed each other in our development stage in a quite interesting way. There was some in the back and forth of stages of the supporting each other in the process.
So when your brother, for example, like with the ADCC gold, right, winning double gold, is that a moment of embrace and celebration for both of you equally? Does it feel like the Estima is winning double gold, or is there regret? Is there negative comparison at that point for you?
When brother won ADCC, I was so happy for him. So happy. I could not describe. I was happier for him to win than for me to win myself.
That's awesome.
And the reason why is because I was part of everything that brother did. I was part of his training program. I was teaching in the school so he can train. I was being a contributor to my brother because he helped me so much in so many situations that I felt I needed to give back. And my way to give back, I was going to do whatever I could. Even to be able to be in a standard where I can offer challenge and train enough for him, it made me feel proud. That he chose whenever he came. He used to go train with Roger a lot, and then he would come back and he would count on me for his training on the off days that he was not in London. And I felt so proud of that he counted me as an equal. And when he won the double gold, it just felt an expression of myself too. But very quickly, I realized that it's his journey and it's not my journey. It's his title, his achievement. He deserves that, but I didn't win. I didn't do it myself. So it's that sense of reality and sense of responsibility to my own achievements kicked in straight away. And I'm happy for him, but it's not me there. I'm also going to have my moment. That's always something that I felt it was going to happen at some point. It's his moment. I'll have my moment.
It's a very healthy view of that. I know people personally that struggle with comparison. And I mean, I would include myself in this boat, right? It's easy to look over the other side of the fence and wish and hope, but you can only compare yourself to where you were yesterday. That's what my fiance always tells me, and I love that saying because it's true. When you look at it like that, you get perspective on your own progress, and that's the only thing that's only
one that matters. And that's where. Sorry, go ahead. No, and that's when Barra and I. This was the moment where it was very easy for me to be happy for him. Because that stage of me, it was all about us. Creating, doing it, and it was great. But that was a moment in our relationship and being brother to Braulio that I pressured myself so much to replicate what he did that it was causing a negative effect, but not by the feeling we have for each other, but because I felt that I also had to. Because I was a younger brother coming. If my self-worth would only be if I actually accomplished what he did. Somehow. It was... And that was the moment of discovering on how to perform myself and how to grow to my full potential. And those are the learning curves that I had to go through to be who I am today. But first was blurred by, I want to be like him, I want to do like him. But I'm not him. I cannot expect to be like him because I would set myself for failure. I would just be who I am. And be who I am, doesn't matter what the results. The results will be according to who I am, to my story, to the moments, competitions, athletes I will face, and my jiu-jitsu style. And that was my journey then.
I think, too, in those instances, a lot about the description you said of you and your friends driving the car, talking about, what would we do if tomorrow we had $1 million or something. And you all said unanimously, do jiu-jitsu. When you find yourself comparing yourself to other people, it's important to ask yourself, what would you be doing if all of that came true in the snap of the fingers? All the wishes and wants and everything that you think that you need if that just happened right now, what would your day-to-day life look like? And if your day-to-day life would be drastically different than the one you're currently living, then it might be time to make some shifts. But if you find, like, I joke all the time, I'm like, how would I spend my day if tomorrow I woke up and there was $1 billion in my account and never had to work again? I would train jiu-jitsu like 6 days a week, and I would podcast because I absolutely love it. And it's fulfilling, and I enjoy these conversations so much. And that's the answer, right? Then do that. Go do that thing that you would do anyway. Exactly. And then that's where comparison goes away and happiness fills the void. It's a different view.
100%. And this is something that comes with that conversation we had earlier about have clarity about what is your dream, what you want to do. So you can then don't talk about the destination, but talk about the journey, so you can live the life that you're proud of, that your dream, which allows you to be fulfilled. So you should be able to live the way you want to be for the next 10, 20 years. You want to be able to live that life. Of course, work hard in different stages, but you are working towards this dream where you can be, your best self within your routine, your lifestyle. I would be training 100%. I would be training 100%. And the thing is, the feeling to train when I want to train, rock up and just do a session, even being a student in situations. Sometimes I'm used to teach so many classes that just sometimes turn up, listen to the professor talking, try to follow the techniques, and do some specifics and do some rolling. Try to implement the new thoughts of the professor. For me, this is a lot of joy. I enjoy being a student. I enjoy teach. I enjoy being on the mats. So that for sure, I will probably increase the number of times I am on the mats. Right. Because right now I have to do a lot more work than I used to in the past. I do a lot more office work than I used to do it. So I don't spend it twice a day on the mats like I used to in the past.
So at this level, given your career, your current role, what are you still learning in jiu-jitsu?
That's a very, very interesting question because, of course, you are constantly learning. But I'm on a journey of trying to implement the concepts I understand in different and more creative ways. I think that I'm trying to create synergy across multiple different types of concepts. Because jiu-jitsu, they are different for everyone, but the concepts, they are pure. They're like the moral codes, of jiu-jitsu. The principles are there, but they be replicated, implemented in different times and structures and angles and positions and different storytelling inside the techniques of jiu-jitsu. And I try to find new stories, new ways of implementing the same thing. And I'm also adapting to my longevity jiu-jitsu.
What's that look like? I'm asking for a friend.
One thing for sure, I'm doing things that allow less weight in my lower back. Play jiu-jitsu styles that have less weight in the lower back.
So like you play less open guard or like less positions to get stacked?
Yeah, less positions, for example, less armbars from guard, less triangles from guard. More being underneath the center of gravity, switch to omoplata quickly so you don't take the pressure. I'm practicing a lot, guard passing that doesn't require too many back steps. It becomes a little bit more static and square and canceling the beginning of the grips of my opponent. And don't let him or her begin the positions on me so I can cancel from the start. So actually untangle the games of people to get what I want in more simpler ways. And that doesn't require a lot of, dropping on the knees, banking on the side, Because this is the sort of thing that you might hurt more in jiu-jitsu. When you're taking load on your lower back and neck, having to invert too much to get the positions. And then from the top position, the knee crossing, the landing, the shoulder pressures. And that's kind of what can create long-term damage if you keep taking stress on those places. I try to minimize those and then cancel the problem from start. Don't let the problem become a problem. And then you have the less resistance on whatever your opponent is trying to accomplish. You take the resistance before it becomes a resistance. So,
are you able to train? I always wonder this about athletes that have been doing this a long time. If someone walks into your academy, maybe they're a friend, maybe they're someone new, and they're of similar skill level and tenure in the sport, they've been around for the same time, do you still have matches in training where you're really going for it and you're really meeting like intensity to intensity, skill level to skill level, or do you purposely stray away from that in pursuit of longevity?
This is a critical question. I'm trying to figure out my balance where I can minimize the level of stress on my body without stopping challenging myself.
Right.
I'm 38 years old, right? And I'm not old at all, still young, still very capable. And sometimes it's kind of hard for me to hold myself back when I know I have younger generations coming in and trying to challenge themselves with me, and I have to. I want to be pushed so I can better myself, right. But physically I have to watch so I don't compromise myself. Number one is being okay if I can't accomplish something, or if I get scored in, or if I lose a match. It's accepting that it's okay. It doesn't define you. It's the ego management one more time. Again, especially when it goes into your standard, it becomes unequal to you, and then you don't want to come from the bottom, because at the end of the day, you are a competitor, so you tend to be very competitive. So I try hard to pick my battles, not do it every time. I'm okay to say no sometimes when I don't feel right, and I try to pick my battles so myself I can be safer when I do it. But I think that is a balance that you gotta be able to challenge yourself, so you gotta be pushed further, but you don't want to compromise your body. Yeah. So techniques cannot be. I think I played that mentality since the beginning, because in some moments I kind of lost track of it, but I try to respect this rule. If I am having to compromise my body for a position, that means my position was wrong.
I like that. Sometimes the simplest pieces of advice are the best ones.
Simple one. Like, if you have to compromise your body in any position to defend or avoid something, it's because you already made the mistake. Yeah. You already should anticipate that. You should be positioned differently. You should be accepting the fact that you've been swept on that position. Somebody, for example, somebody's trying to sweep you, they cut your leg, and they're trying to do a technical lifting your leg with you. Right. And then it's putting pressure on your knee. And then if you try to stand up from that, the knee gets torn. If you accept, you just sit down, it's fine. And sometimes the fact you don't want to fall, you bend your knee further to don't fall, and then your knee goes to prop. Yep. And that is a compromise in your knee to don't fall into a position that was already wrong and you're already mistaken. You shouldn't accept the sweep or compromise so don't hurt your knee.
There's a lot of lessons in resistance in jiu-jitsu. It's one thing I've just stuck out a lot to me is you'll fight to try to do the wrong thing to prevent something from happening, when in reality there's two things that are probably happening. One, there's a solution in front of you that you're not seeing because you're so worried about doing this other thing. Or two, you have an opportunity to use their momentum to change the position, but instead it's the resistance. And like, I can't tell you how many times that plays out in real life, right? You have something's going on and you fight it and you put all your energy and all your stress and all your worry and everything into it, and you could just accept it and redirect it. Just
100%
step out of the way.
But that is a very critical thing on that one, Abe. You got to know what to do.
Facts, yes. It's true.
If you haven't got the knowledge of what are the options, you have got no option apart from survive. And the survive means stands up, fight the obvious, and resist. And that is your ego saying, I already messed up, but I'm not giving to you. I'm going to stop you.
Yeah, I mean,
and
the
then,
only time...
And sometimes you got to do it. And you have to do it. So don't let it happen. But
the most injured I've gotten training or closest to it, it all comes from ego moments. It's, I don't want to lose to you. That's what the feeling is. I'm not going to lose to you. In your head, I'm better than you are. I'm not going to let you have this, which is so silly. But it's, again, I never would have known that that was part of me had I not been exposed to it in a real life situation.
That's perfect.
But it's
that's when it correlates to everything that we're living in jiu-jitsu. Yeah. It's the microcosmos of life, because we're living intensely this situation, and then you see all the ups and downs. If you are a confident person, you're automatically going to use that in your favor. And if you're not very confident, you tend to quit on things a bit early. You put a little resistance, gets difficult, and then you quit. And you give the position. Or you work on half guard for about 1 week, and you didn't get half guard, and you never go back to half guard again. Yeah. Right? And this is kind of what tends to show that people tend to focus in things when they don't really get it. They just move to the next thing, and then they don't really get it. They move to the last thing, and then they never become like excellent at that thing because they're constantly shifting.
How important is it to lose in training to get beat?
Well, I think when you get beat in training, you are learning how to handle the loss and try to fight back. So you're learning resilience, and yes, you're taking the loss and you're not happy, and you have to overcome that by coming back again. So you learn resilience when you get beat, and you build like a little bit of a thicker skin.
Yep.
But if you don't take advantage of the problem, fix the problem, you're not learning anything else but that. So it's like you got to put into practice. You got to find out, okay, I made a mistake. I fell for this position and I got beat here. But you cannot, you can be beat in 10 different ways against the opponent, but you got beat today by passing with the knee slice, with the back step, turning to the person, whatever it is. So you have to go and what is the critical moment here? How things were starting to go bad for me? Is that the moment of the submission? Is that the moment of guard retention? Or maybe it's both. There was a moment after the guard was passed, there's a moment before the guard was still established, and it's the grip that you changed wrong. You have to do the aftermath, and you have to reverse engineering. How did you get here? If you don't actively search for the mistakes that you made that led into the position, don't look at it only into one position, look at the bigger picture and backtrack and learn from it, you're just going to be doing the same mistake again and again. And so that means if you're making the same mistake again and again, and there's no benefit. Losing matches are only benefit and losing training when you turn into a positive one. And then otherwise you're just learning to lose.
Man, there's so many. The parallels in life are insane. How many there are, and how much these lessons transpire into your day to day. I think a lot about. I mean, longevity is a really interesting thing, and I think about it all the time in jiu-jitsu. I know that my youth, my athleticism, my strength, all those things are present now. They won't be there when I'm 60, They won't. I know that, and it's very easy to go through life thinking that your current state will just be eternal, that you'll always be the way that you are. But jiu-jitsu teaches you that you have to adjust your game as you age, and that's like a loaded statement because you're only 38, right? I say that like you're a 90-year-old, but you're not. But you're being smart about it, and you're thinking about your longevity. And so in a world where people don't think about death, they don't think about age, they don't think about getting older and how their life is going to change, this art form shows it to you every single day. Because there will be a day where Victor Estima cannot compete with a 24-year-old, sheerly by age and physicality. It's guaranteed to happen. That day will come. And wrapping your head around that and being okay with that, and then doing everything you can to enjoy the process between now and then, and that journey part of it. I don't know. That's one of the most valuable lessons that you can get in life, is to appreciate the part that you're in, knowing that it's destined to change. And jiu-jitsu is so starkly shows that constantly.
It is. How about this? You just have to accept that you're not going to be the same. And then you just need to accept is the natural course of life that you're going to fall behind a bit, but you're not defined by your ability to beat someone up. You are defined by your ability to contribute.
Yes.
And that's where, when you shift the bar where your moral standards are, when you just invert the values a little bit, correct them maybe, just correct the values to a more longer term mindset, I think those things really help. Because if your only sense of value is your ability to beat someone, or if you lead your team with your ability to beat someone, and all the respect you get only as far as you can do that, and then the next lion comes in and they can do it to you, where is your respect?
Yeah.
Right? And this is one of the things that I've learned from Carlson Gracie Jr. He basically said, we were in a culture where lions, he compared to lions with jiu-jitsu. So when you are the strong lion and young and you're fresh, the lion eat all the food, he gets attention to all the female lioness, all the lioness, and you are the alpha and you are the guy. Yeah. And then until the younger lion comes in and prove themselves to you, or basically beat you and overtake that position, and now the older lion goes into eats crumbs and there's no more lionesses, and just gets alone and excluded. And then it's the time of the reign of the young cubs, the young lions that strong. And basically, that's, if you think about jiu-jitsu, it is the athlete that is a teacher who beats everybody at training until the students learn and get good and start giving challenge to the teacher. And if the lion, the student that becomes the new professor, he comes over and he loses the respect for the professor, or he thinks he's the alpha now and it just takes away the opportunities from the other professor. And then you're basically creating the next generation that will do the same and the same and the same. The best way would be for us to all help each other, eat for as long as possible.
Yeah. Everybody's
got shelter for as long as possible. He created this mentality in jiu-jitsu that we can all help each other. And inside the jiu-jitsu teachers going to open new schools and expanding the development of jiu-jitsu, it speaks very loud. In the past, a student comes in, there's no opportunity for that student that became professor, he goes open a school next to the professor, and then he upsets the professor gets angry because it's creonte, and then it goes into a nice master cycles of people leaving each other. And then when he created this network of Gracie Barra, doesn't matter who you are, you can go develop your school and develop yourself with inside the team, and the professor supports the students, they help them grow, and it keeps giving back to the community in a very positive way, where everybody is enough food for everyone. Let's share this, let's do it for the greater good. And that's kind of a nice mentality to correlate with the younger generation coming in, and value for your ability to contribute and not for your ability to beat them.
I feel like I don't have children yet, but I'm excited to have them, and I could only imagine it's got to be similar to having a child, right? Your values shift. Now, it's your job to go from being young and wild and crazy, and you're only worrying about yourself, to now there's someone to be an example for, to teach, to demonstrate values and morals, and all of that shifts, and then your role actually becomes so much greater in the long run, right? You get to be a father who's remembered by your children. You get to be a mother who's remembered by your children as an example, as someone to aspire to be like. And we all have that ability to become that. We have to choose to be that way. Some people don't, unfortunately, choose that, and that's sad in and of itself. But that opportunity is there. What are you going to do with your black belt?
Exactly.
How will you bring it
back?
Well, Victor, we've cruised through. I mean, as expected, I always go faster than I thought. I really appreciate you taking the time to be here and chat and share your wisdom and your philosophy on this incredible art form. We'll definitely have to do this again in the future. It's
been a pleasure. Thank you, Abe, for the conversation. I didn't even notice the time going by. I enjoyed every question, and it really connects to what is my purpose, right? If that is an opportunity for us to inspire a life that listened to this and they got motivated to do jiu-jitsu, or they had some light bulbs, some clicks that they could relate to and make positive changes in their lives, it's already made it worthwhile being here and spend this moment with you, and appreciate the invitation. I hope we get to see each other again, and maybe we meet in person one day.
Yes, get some rolls in. Absolutely, brother. Thank you so much.